Hello everyone. In the Active Directory series part 1 we had discussed about the overview of Active Directory domain services. In this part of Active Directory domain services tutorial we will be discussing about Active Directory domain services physical components that are domain controllers, global catalog servers, data store, application and sites. Coming to domain controller, a domain controller is a server with the Active Directory domain services server role installed that has specifically been promoted to a domain controller. Each domain controller holds a copy of the directory store and updates can be made to the Active Directory domain services data on all domain controller except for RODCs. Have multiple domain controller in each domain. This provides load balancing, but more importantly, it also provides a recoverability if a server failure occurs. All domain controllers engage in authentication and authorization, thus making it a redundant system with fewer fail points. Each domain controller holds a copy of the directory store, and updates can be made to Active Directory domain services data on all domain controller except for RODCs. So in short, the domain controller hosts a copy of the Active Directory domain services directory store, provides authentication and authorization services, replicates updates to other domain controller in the domain and forest. So if in case one of the domain controller in the certain domain fails, it is replicated to another one and allows the administrative access to manage user accounts and network resources. Next physical component is global catalog servers. Global catalog server are domain controllers that also store a copy of the global catalog. The global catalog partition is like other partition in Active Directory domain services, but unlike other partition, administrator cannot enter information directly into the partition. The global catalog builds and updates its content based on values of a schema attribute that is a member of a partial attribute set, thus deciding when to replicate that attribute of a Active Directory domain services objects in the global catalog. Note that the alternative to having a searchable global catalog would be much more traffic over the entire organization network. So the global catalog contains a copy of all the Active Directory domain objects in a forest that includes only some of the attributes for each object in the forest. It improves efficiency of object searches by avoiding unnecessary referral to the domain controller required for user to log on to a domain. So what is the Active Directory domain services data store? The Active Directory domain services data store contains the database file and process that store and manage directory information for user services and application. The Active Directory domain services data store consists of the ntds.dit file. The ntds.dit file is a database with usually three or more tables. The name and purpose of the important tables are the data table. First comes data table. Data table is used to store the object accessible in Active Directory. Second table is a link table within the ntds.dit file, which is used to provide a reference to objects. It was introduced with Server 2003. The third table is sd table. It is used to store the security descriptors. The database engine for ntdis.dit is the extensible storage engine and is a proprietary Microsoft database engine. This engine is also used in Microsoft Exchange. However, the page sizes are different between the two databases. It is 8192 bytes in ntds.dit database and 4096 bytes in Exchange. The Active Directory Domain Services database cannot be directly accessed by any application. All access to the database is managed by the domain controller. 64-bit hardware can provide a significant performance boost for domain controller because of the increase in addressable memory space. So what is AD DS replication? Active Directory Domain Services replication copies all the updates of the Active Directory Domain Services database to all other domain controller in a domain or forest. Active Directory Domain Services Replication ensures that all domain controllers have the same information. It uses a multi-master replication mode, can be managed by creating Active Directory domain services sites. The Active Directory domain services replication topology is created automatically as new domain controllers are added to the domain. So if directory information did not replicate regularly, logons would fail at domains other than where the user account was created. Locations and names of domain controller might not be current, causing services contained on them to become unavailable. There are advantages of multi-master replication that includes elimination. It eliminates the single point of failure, the faster replication as each domain controller can be involved with replicating data. Domain controllers in the same site replicates their data typically within 15 seconds after a change. Completing replication with all members in a properly configured tree is about 45 seconds. When you create multiple sites, you can configure a replication schedule between the sites. The next component is sites. What are sites? An Active Directory domain services site is used to represent a network segment where all domain controllers are connected by a fast and reliable network connection. Sites are associated with IP subnet. It uses to manage replication traffic, used to manage client logon traffic, used by the site-aware applications such as distributed file system, DFS, or Exchange server, used to assign group policy object to all users and computer in a company location. So sites are often defined after an analysis of network bandwidth capacity. The primary reason for creating site is to control network traffic across wide area network links. By creating sites, you can minimize replication traffic across the WAN link because you can schedule the replication. You also control client logon traffic and provide a better client logon experience because client computers will always connect to a domain controller in their own site first. All of the domain controller in a particular domain, coming to domain, let's discuss about this, then we will proceed further. Domains are the unit of replication maintained by a domain controller and it maintains a million of objects. So all of the domain controller in a particular domain can receive changes and replicate those changes to all other domain controller in the domain. Each domain in Active Directory is identified by a domain name system. Domain name and requires one or more domain controllers. Next physical component is trees. An Active Directory tree is a collection of domain within a Microsoft Active Directory network. The term refers to the fact that each domain has exactly one parent, leading to a hierarchical tree structure. A group of Active Directory trees is known as forest. So that's all guys about Active Directory domain services, physical components. In the next two tutorials, we will discuss about Active Directory domain services, logical components. So if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, please subscribe now and share with your friends. Thanks and see you in the next tutorial.